All right, good afternoon, everyone. I see we have some people trickling in right now. My name is Kayla Marino, and I am with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 27 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one consulting services are also available at no charge. Today's bootcamp, Success Through eCommerce, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. And be sure to check out our next digital bootcamp, Grow Your Business with Digital Marketing, on February 3rd. We are recording today's presentation, and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted, but if you have any questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box. We also have enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Cameron Nelson. Cameron Nelson is the Chief Digital Advisor for the Virginia SBDC and Central Virginia SBDC. Mr. Nelson has over 18 years of experience in technology as a senior tech consultant in Silicon Valley, advising small businesses and startups. And he has a particular interest in digital marketing, e-commerce, and blockchain. So please welcome Cameron Nelson, our presenter for today.
Thanks for the introduction, and hello everybody. Welcome to Success Through eCommerce. The goal of this presentation is going to give everybody a grounding in the basics of e-commerce to help you grow your business online and increase your sales online. This presentation will probably take 30 to 35 minutes, so we should have 10 or 15 minutes at the end for your questions. And so, feel free to come up with some questions during the course of this. If there's anything that we don't have time to answer today, or you have a more in-depth question, then I'm happy to have a one-on-one meeting with anybody. And my email address is here on the screen. It will also be emailed to you, so feel free to reach out to me after this meeting if you'd like to have that one-on-one. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. We have 3 goals for the bootcamp today. First, we're going to learn what websites and e-commerce platforms might work best for your business. Second, I'm going to show you how to set up your e-commerce store and start listing your items for sale. Third, I'm going to show you how to launch your store and refine your strategy so you can maximize your profits. First, I want to go over your website and what that means for your online business. So your website is referring to something like yourbusiness.com. It's a unique domain name that you buy. If you're going to have an online focused business, either you're selling a good or a service, it's always a good idea to have this. Now, most people do, but some of you might not have a domain name yet. So no matter if you do or you don't right now, these are the 4 different types of websites, and I'll explain some of the capabilities of each so you get an idea of what level of website you need to be at. So a level 1 website is very basic. This is the simplest kind of website. It might just have some information about your business, such as your address or your phone number, but it won't have links to products for sale. Now, this type of website can be sufficient if you just have a service-based business like a hair salon or just something like that, where you're not selling things that are items. But for most businesses and most people here, you're going to want to have at least a level 2 website, which I consider the minimum level website for an e-commerce based business. This type of website will be larger with more pages. It'll have pages for your products and links to external sites that allow people to buy those. So you might decide to have your products for sale on Amazon, Shopify, Etsy, or eBay, or some other site. And with this type of website, you'll link to that third-party site for someone to complete the checkout process. A third level website is a robust level, and this will integrate those shopping capabilities directly onto your website, which gives you more control over the user experience. And you can also charge a bit more because you have a more kind of reputable brand image online. And you're also going to make higher margins because you're not paying that third party seller like Shopify or Amazon to host your products for sale. And the 4th level website is an advanced. This is really only necessary if you have a complex product that to sell. Maybe it takes videos to sell it, video reviews, testimonials. Maybe you want a referral package built in, or you want to offer subscriptions, things like that are considered advanced, and that does increase the development time and cost of your website. So next, I'm going to talk about what are the upgrade considerations. So you might be at a level 2 right now, but you want to go to a level 3. So let's talk about that. If you don't have any website, then you're starting with a level 1. And typically you can get these for free from a site like Wix.com or Squarespace or Weebly. And there'll be a fine starter website if you have a service-based business, right? That you're not trying to sell a product online and take a payment online. Also, if you create a merchant account with Shopify, Etsy, or Amazon, they're going to give you a free kind of starting page for your business that also satisfies this. But these are, again, very basic level websites. And I really recommend most people here would want to start with a level 2 website. This is going to allow you to customize the website a lot more, branding, marketing, imagery, text, you name it. You can really hone in your marketing message here. And this is important because you want to increase your conversion rate. You want to increase the percentage of those people who come to your website and buy something. That's much easier to do when you have developed a nicer looking website. And this type of website, again, won't allow you to host your products for sale on your website, but you'll link to a third-party site like Shopify, Etsy, or Amazon to sell those products. A robust level website is an investment usually between $2,000 and $9,000 to develop, which will allow you to target your market with much greater customization. You'll be able to host your products on your own website, for example, take their credit card information, ship it all through your own website. You can create unique landing pages for different marketing campaigns. You can do what's called A/B testing, where you have two very similar versions of a product page, and you just tweak one aspect of it to see which version gets the most buys. So you can do things like that with a robust level. And an advanced level website is not often required, but they can come in many variations. If your customers need a greater incentive to buy your product because it's maybe more complicated or more of a specialty product, then you might need things like your video sales or geolocation or subscription models. Maybe you want your user to log into your website, etc. So these types of things are covered under the advanced type of website. So hopefully now you have an idea of what kind of website you have or don't have and what level you should be at. Let's talk a little bit about the website costs and operating expenses for these different types. So you're always going to pay for hosting, which is buying that .com or .org or .net domain name. It's about $20 a year for any of these types. Then you're going to pay for the website hosting itself, which starts at about $50 a year for the basic, all the way up to about $250 a year for the advanced. You spend more money with a fancier website because you have more content, more pictures, videos, pages, and you're paying for the bandwidth to serve that content up to people, the website visitors. The next thing you probably want to consider is getting an email address at your domain name as opposed to a free one at Gmail or Yahoo, because having an email address like contact@yourbusiness.com, it looks a lot more professional. The cheapest email address is about $12 a year for a very simple email address like this. However, if you're going to invest in a level 3 or 4 website, I really recommend people will consider a Google-powered email address. It's hosted by Google. You log into it using the Gmail interface, and you get access to all of the Google Docs and Google Calendar and Google Meetings and everything like that. And that's about $75 a year per email address, and I think it's a really good investment. The next thing to consider is your paid ads. So if you have a website for your business, it can be the best website in the world, but you're not going to see much revenue unless you have people visiting it. So paid ads are usually an important part of a strategy for selling online. If you just have a basic level website, my advice is it's usually not a good expenditure to even spend money on ads. You should rather invest money in upgrading that type of website to something a bit more robust. However, if you already have a level 2 website, a good budget to start with minimum is $100 a month or $1,200 a year for paid ads, which can go on Facebook or Google. They could go on Instagram or YouTube, some of the major channels for that. If you have a level 3 robust website, it's usually good to consider a budget of around $3,000 a year. And if you've invested in an advanced level website, some businesses spend $10,000 a year or more on their paid ads. Another cost to consider is the development cost. So if you don't have the time or inclination to learn a little bit about website building, then you can hire a professional developer, usually a freelance developer, to do most of this for you. You can expect to spend about $300 to $1,000 for a basic level website, $750 to $3,000 for a minimum level website, $2,000 to $9,000 for a robust, and $8,000 to $45,000 or more for an advanced level website. These prices are mainly for offshore developers and cheap US-based developers. Some US-based developers can be considerably more than these prices. And the only other expense you'll want to consider here is what's called SSL. If you are taking credit card payments on your own website, which you probably will be doing with a level 3 or 4, you need to encrypt the credit card data that somebody puts on your website, their address and name and all that stuff. So you typically pay around $100 a year to encrypt it. That's called SSL. So now that we've covered the website basics for your business online, that's one part of your online strategy. You have your domain name, you have a good website to sell your product, but many businesses will sell on their website and in conjunction with one or multiple of these e-commerce platforms. There's no reason why you couldn't have your products listed on Shopify and your website, or Shopify and Etsy. So it's a bit up to you. I'm going to go through the 5 main e-commerce platforms to give you some idea of their strengths and weaknesses and which ones might be most applicable to your business. So first off, Shopify. Shopify charges $29 to $79 per month and a transaction fee of 2 to 0%, and it's 0% if you use their payment gateway. And I'll talk more about payment gateways in a moment. Shopify is extremely easy to set up. It offers one-click selling for you as the merchant, so you can post new products very quickly. It does not allow you to customize your checkout process very much. So if you have something that comes in multiple sizes or colors, maybe you're selling handmade scarves or shoes or something, Shopify is not going to have the best interface for you to have different colors and sizes of these types of things. Next is Etsy. They charge a flat 5% sales fee, a 20-cent listing fee per item, and a 3% payment processing fee. So they're a bit more expensive. They're focused on handmade and vintage items and craft supplies. And they're also very easy to set up and post your products on. Third is Facebook Shops, also called Facebook for Business. Don't confuse this with Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace is kind of like a Craigslist competitor where people post stuff for free. This is Facebook Shops, and Facebook Shops is like a Shopify, right? It's for merchants selling their goods online. They're not free things here. They charge a flat 5% sales fee or a 40-cent fee, and they charge a shipping fee for items at $8 or less. They're really geared towards small businesses and merchants. And one really good thing about Facebook is they're the world's 2nd largest search engine after Google. So people search it all the time to find stuff like goods and services. And they have 2.5 billion users. So that's a lot of organic search traffic that can find you if you're selling on Facebook. Amazon is the world's largest e-commerce platform. Their pricing structure is $1 per item or $40 per month, plus a fulfillment fee that can range between $2 and $6. They do offer warehousing of your products, which not all of these do. They offer returns and customer service for you, but they charge you for those features. So they could be a good solution for many small businesses. They're the largest e-commerce platform in the world, and they also, I think, are the best for selling things that come in multiple sizes, colors, variations, because they offer a good way to select for exactly what the shopper's looking for and to see the price and to buy it. Last up is Amazon Handmade. They're the most expensive here. They charge 15% fee on all sales. They offer the same great Amazon experience that is really good if you're selling multiple sizes or colors or variations. And they're also focused on handmade and vintage items like Etsy. You also need to qualify to sell there by submitting an artisan application, and that process can take a month or longer. So be prepared if you're starting that. It is not quick. They require multiple forms of verification of you and your business, a phone interview, sometimes multiple phone interviews. It's pretty involved. But if you can get accepted there, it can be a great place to sell your handmade items. So next, we're going to talk about these 5 in a little bit more detail, talk about some of their highlights and strengths. So by the end of this, I hope you have an idea of which site or sites would be the best for you to sell on. First is Shopify, and they bill themselves as the platform commerce is built on. They're helping people sell things like beauty supplies, cosmetics, things for your home, things for your garden, things for an active lifestyle, so clothing, pottery, things like that. They offer a free trial period of 14 days where they don't even charge any fees on what you sell, so you can get started with them without taking any real risk. Now, one interesting thing that Shopify has done just within the last month is this thing with NFTs. So I also teach an online course through the SBDC about blockchain for business. Some of you might have seen that. If so, I would have talked about NFTs briefly, but I'm going to try to cover it on this slide as well because I think it's really important. So NFTs stand for non-fungible tokens, which are a unique digital token that can't be replaced or replicated. They're issued on a blockchain like Ethereum. So some people might have heard of Ethereum. These tokens can represent anything digital like art, stickers, music, videos, even tweets, right? Anything that's a digital thing, you can kind of own it. So if you want to own the first tweet that, let's say, a president made, it could be turned into an NFT and sold. Now, the interesting thing is Shopify recently enabled merchants to create and sell NFTs, which is really cool. So if you're doing something with digital art, digital music, anything like that, I would definitely look into Shopify's service with NFTs. I think it's pretty revolutionary. They're the only e-commerce platform that currently allows this and makes it very accessible to people who are not tech savvy. So the link is here down at the bottom. I'll let you go to that on your own, and this presentation will be emailed to you, so you don't need to write it down or anything. But definitely check that out if this sounds like something that could be useful to your business. I think it's really cool. Next up is Etsy. Etsy really tries to market itself as the place to go for hobby supplies, craft items. And you can see here they have some things like handmade baskets and leather goods and wood goods, toys and unique collectibles, jewelry, things like that. So if you're in the business of selling any of these types of items, Etsy is a really great place for you to list them on because people come to Etsy looking for products like these. Facebook Shops is the newest major e-commerce platform. They also integrate with Instagram because Facebook owns Instagram. So when you list a product on Facebook Shops, it has the potential for being displayed and found when somebody searches on Facebook or Instagram. It's a good platform for selling things. It has a nice user interface. If you already use Facebook for your business, then this can be a pretty logical place for you to list some items for sale. And if you don't use Facebook for your business, or you don't want to, you don't like their methods of data collection and analysis, then it's probably best just to stay away from this because they will require you to create an account, and any of your data they'll track and sell and do whatever they want with. So, if you're into that ecosystem already, this can be really great. Otherwise, you might want to avoid it. Next is Amazon. I think it's a site we all know. It's the world's largest e-commerce website. Amazon really does a great job with the user experience, helping people find the products they're looking for. It can be a great place to sell your products because they offer warehousing. They'll inventory your stuff for you and ship it out, right? This is an amazing time saver for many small businesses. Amazon also handles returns, even some customer inquiries and complaints. So they do a lot of that heavy lifting for you. And a lot of small businesses find a lot of pros with using Amazon. Some of the cons with using Amazon can be counterfeit goods and fakes. So for example, I was working with a local food company in Central Virginia. This was last year. They were selling like $100,000 a year of their pasta on Amazon, like dried pasta, until a competitor completely ripped off their brand and their product and everything and made like an identical listing for slightly cheaper. And all of a sudden, the legitimate company was losing almost all of their business. Well, Amazon wouldn't put a stop to it. And so it was really a hard thing for this small business to deal with, and how to pivot away from Amazon. So just be aware, there are a lot of things like that with the potential to happen on Amazon. It's not necessarily a safe place for all types of businesses because counterfeit goods are rampant, and Amazon doesn't really have firm policies to stop that kind of thing. And if that didn't turn you off to using Amazon, then let's continue with Amazon Handmade, which is really Amazon's answer to Etsy, focused on handmade things like soaps or candles, textiles, leather goods, and all this. If you're in that market, Amazon Handmade is a really kind of exclusive place to sell that. Once you qualify by submitting and going through the artisan application process, then you can have a lot of users and customers coming to you and finding your products here on Amazon Handmade. So now that we've talked about the 5 major e-commerce platforms, hopefully in your mind, you have some idea of which one or ones sound the most logical for your business. So the next steps are going to be the same no matter which e-commerce you go with. You're going to set up your e-commerce store. So the way you do that is you're going to find your product to sell, customize your e-commerce store template, and add your products. So first, finding a product to sell. One question that a lot of small businesses have is, how many products should I plan on selling? It's not a good idea to try to list too many, because it can take a lot of time to create and maintain postings, especially if you're on, say, multiple e-commerce sites. So I would say you can start between 10 and 20 products is a good number. If you even have 10, if you only have a couple, that's fine. Just start there. I have talked to some small businesses that have in the thousands of products, and that's just way too many to try to manage, because most of these products are not high sellers anyway. So if you're in that situation like that, I would recommend you focus on your top 10% or so of your highest selling products and start by listing them online first, and then seeing what sells. So ways to find a product that sells, ask yourself, does it solve a customer pain point? And the bigger the pain, the more chance it has of selling well online. Does it appeal to an enthusiast or hobbyist crowd? Because if so, then Etsy or Amazon Handmade are logical places to sell it. Does it go with your personal passion and build on your professional experience? What gives you an edge with this product over somebody else selling something similar? Does it capitalize on any trends early? You can read customer reviews on existing products to get some good ideas of what they like about products if you're thinking of selling something similar, or more importantly, what they dislike, because by reading about what people dislike about certain things, you can address that with your product. Litmus test before you launch means, start small, start with a small group of products and learn over the first couple of months which ones are selling the best, and then you can build upon what you've learned to expand. You can browse what's trending on online marketplaces. So Amazon has a section where they tell you like the #1 bestseller in home and garden, or in video games. And these things change all the time, every day. So you can get a lot of good information just by looking at what's selling the most on Amazon. Another website that helps to kind of aggregate the data from Amazon is called Camel, just like the animal 3 times, camel.com. And it helps people see trends on Amazon. So it can be a useful tool to look at if you're thinking of selling on Amazon. You should always research and try to post your products with the highest profit margins, because when you sell online, really things become commodities, and it's harder to sell at a premium price point if you're selling on Amazon, as opposed to if you're selling in a brick and mortar store, because people just can't see the difference in quality. So you will have lower profit margins usually. So you need to start with products that have high profit margins, and always be on the lookout for new trends and new opportunities if you're selling online, so you can capitalize on those early. So next, you're going to customize your e-commerce template. When you get started with one of these e-commerce sites, they're going to give you a range of feature-packed and beautiful templates to build your online store from. You're going to want to ask yourself a few questions to find the right template. You should ask, what features do you want your store to have? If you have a great promo video for your product, or maybe you have some really good images, you're going to want those maybe right up at the front. You want to find a template that has a video placed at the front or images, at the top. Think about, what style of homepage do you want? Do you want it to be white, minimalistic? Do you want it to be more colorful? What's your brand and what's your message? And try to tie this in with your website, your .com, as much as possible, so that brand experience is pretty consistent across any of your online channels. And also think about how you want customers to move around your store. Do you want to sell products in different categories? If so, you can create, categories that make sense for your business. Do you want, maybe you want everything listed just in one category, and that's fine too. But think about that, and then you'll find a template that meets that need. And whichever templates you decide with, customizing it can be really easy. You can change just about anything, including things like your text size, your colors, any images, the position and the placement of products, features describing your product, and you can embed your links to social media pages. It's really a good idea to always embed your social media. So if you have Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, you want to put those links on your e-commerce store and on your homepage, because your customers will most likely do a little bit of research about your business before they decide to buy, especially if they're a first-time buyer of your product. So if you are active on any social media platforms, you should definitely put those links there so customers can do a little bit of research, see if you're posting relevant things, seeing how much engagement you have, seeing what people are saying about your products, right? All of these things are what social media is really good for, so you want to take advantage of that. The next thing you're going to do is to add your products to your page. You'll need a few things before you can start adding your products. First one is the name, and this can be something that's very utilitarian, like leather handmade women's shoes, or they can be something more creative and playful. And this just depends on your industry. So I suggest you do some research and see what your competitors are naming, maybe come up with some good names for your products. You're going to want to have the price of the product, what category it is, the weight for physical products, or a digital file for any downloadable products like ebooks. So to have great product listings, you're going to need great product descriptions, product images, and the right product categories. So first, let's talk a little bit about descriptions. The descriptions need to be convincing, but you should keep them short. And here's a few things to avoid. Avoid using any complex jargon or abbreviations, any kind of industry terms. These things, if they're not known to everybody, then it's just best to spell them out and don't use abbreviations. Avoid using cliches and avoid using long sentences. Some of the research done on Amazon's best-selling items last year showed the length of the descriptions that were the best-selling products. And that showed that between 2 and 3 sentences of text and between 4 and 8 bullet points was the golden spot of description. So try to stick to something around there. Don't make your text descriptions too long, because generally people won't read that much. So as I said before, selling things online kind of reduces your product to a commodity, which can be a real problem for some small businesses. One way to help differentiate your product from others and make it stand out is by taking great product images. So here are some tips and pointers to do that. Here's a picture of a photography light box. This is a simple setup you can buy for $40 or $50 online, and it'll allow you to take images of your products on a neutral background with consistent lighting. And the only other thing you'd need in this setup is a tripod, typically, to put your camera. Now, most modern smartphones will take a pretty decent photo, so you shouldn't need to buy an expensive DSLR camera. But so if you have a modern smartphone, I think you'll be fine. But this light box idea is really important. There's nothing makes a product worse than having uneven lighting or dark shadows or different backgrounds. So you want to avoid that. Here's some other tips. You want to use high quality images, high resolution images. You never want to select images that look blurry or pixelated. And you want to make sure each image is the same size, and you can resize them in Photoshop or another online tool if you just Google free online image resizing. If you have the ability to take a 360-degree photo, like Amazon allows this a lot of times, and they'll walk you through how to do this. And I would definitely make use of this option if you have something that has interesting detail on the sides or on the back. So maybe you're making a handmade pottery bowl and you want to show that detail all the way around. Well, you're going to really get that across with a 360-degree photo. So you want to make use of it. And also add any kind of product variation images. So if there's different sizes, colors, textures, have an image showing every conceivable variation so a customer can see exactly what they are going to buy. And lastly, some websites will offer a zoom option. So if you have a really high resolution image and you have really fine, intricate detail you want to show off, then you can upload a high resolution image and have the ability for people to zoom in on that. And lastly, when you take images right out of a smartphone or a DSLR camera, they're going to be very large in megabytes, maybe between 5 and 10 megabytes per image, which is really way too big for posting online. Your needs for your website, for social media, or for your e-commerce store, you only really need between 100 and 200 kilobytes, KB. So if you have a photo that's 2 megabytes, you reduce it down to 200 kilobytes, that's a 1/10, that's a reduction down to 1/10 of its original size, which is all you need. So you can optimize your image sizes like that by just Googling a free online image compression tool. And I recommend you do that so as to not post any very large images on your e-commerce site, because that'll make it load very slow for people with slower internet connections. So here are some examples of good product images. Now there's a lot of examples out there. These are just 3 that I picked to show off, but they do give some good tips and insight into what you should be considering for your images. The first one on the left is an image that shows the dimensions of your product. So if you're trying to get across the scale of it, here I think it's an Alexa inside of a cat, which is kind of cute, but you know, this person selling it is showing the relative size of that, which can be very smart. Then the middle one is a comparison chart. You've probably seen this a lot. It's a popular way to show the difference and the highlights of your product to the others, you know, whatever the others may be. So here you want to talk about what your differentiators are. And the third one is a kind of 3D image or infograph. These can be very effective in showing something that's inside. You know, what makes this metal thermos special, right? It's something that's inside. So for some of these, you're going to hire a graphic artist to help you create. And it's usually a very good investment if you have few products and you want to make some of these fancier product images. They really help to sell your product online because they're making your brand and your product seem more premium and more reputable to potential online buyers. So the third thing we're going to do, or you're going to do with your store, is to launch your store and to maximize your profits. So we're going to talk about how to set up your payment methods, what you do to preview, test, and publish your store, and then what would be a good thing to do in a follow-up period 4 to 6 weeks later. So setting up your payment methods. To take a credit card payment online and process it and send the payment to your bank account has a fee. And typically the fee ranges between 1% and 10 cents per transaction to 3% and 30 cents per transaction. The variation just depends on the originating bank, the destination bank, and any middlemen in between. So it does vary quite a bit. There's 3 popular ways to accept your payments. The first one is a merchant account and a payment gateway. So you'll open an account with a bank. This bank will give you an interface and take the payments for you and then channel that money into your business bank account. This can be simple to set up, but also kind of costly sometimes. The second option is the payment gateway package. This is something like WooCommerce, which is the most popular e-commerce platform on WordPress. And it will act as an interface between a credit card and your bank account. And again, perform the same function, process those credit card payments for a small fee. The third option is simplified credit card payment processing. So in this scenario, you can use a service that integrates your e-commerce stores in your e-commerce store's checkout. So Shopify is a good example of this. They have their own payment gateway. I think they're just so big, they decided just to create their own infrastructure. So if you use it, they give you a 0% credit card processing fee, which can be really nice. So depending on your situation, you might find any of these three is your least expensive option. Next, you're going to preview, test, and then publish your online store. The reason you want to do this is because if there's any problems with your store or your website, you want to find them before your customers do. So when you're previewing and testing your store, here's a few things you want to look out for. Does your checkout process work? You know, there's quite a few settings you're going to set up in there. And if you entered something incorrectly or forgot something, it might not work. So go through it yourself, you know, pretend to buy something, actually do complete the purchase, and then you can just refund yourself. You can test out everything, including the refund process, and if your email notifications come through appropriately, etc. Next, you want to check if your store's buttons all work. Make sure that any clickable button or link is working and goes to the correct page. So you click away on all the buttons, and have some other people, your friends and family, do something like this too, because the more people looking at it, the more likely to find any problems that might be there. And finally, you know, go through all your text and your images, look for poor spelling and grammar, make sure your images, none of them look pixelated. And also, if you notice, say you have a page with like 4 images, sometimes you'll see one image load very, very slowly. And I think we've all seen this. 3 will be instant, 1 will just really go slowly. That one image you might have forgot to resize, and it might be that 2 megabyte or that 5 megabyte image. So that kind of thing can really detract from the performance of your website and decrease your conversion rate. So if you notice that, then you should go back and fix it by shrinking that image size and re-uploading a new version. And lastly, it's a good idea to follow up with a professional. I think in 4 to 6 weeks after launching your e-commerce site, you know, you're going to want to ask a few questions and talk about a few things, such as, did you meet your sales and revenues goals for the first month? What feedback did you receive from your customers? Which of your products sold the best and the worst? And what new ideas do you have for products to sell online now? Finally, you know, what have you learned from your competition, and what are you going to do differently going forward? And I'll say that the world of online shopping and selling is evolving very rapidly. It seems every 6 or 12 months, there's a new thing that comes out and people learn about and kind of adapt to a new strategy or a new tactic. So you can never be complacent selling online, because if you are, your competitors will outmaneuver you. So it's something that, you know, you constantly need to be aware of and looking into. But going to boot camps like this is a great way to increase your knowledge, and just doing reading and research on your own, spending a few hours a week is just a good start. So if there's trends coming up, like the NFT thing on Shopify, be aware of it, because if you're one of the first, they can get on evolving trend like that. It can really help your business online. And also, you know, I'm happy to talk with anybody here on one-on-one to follow up. And that's why I'm here. So feel free to reach out if you'd like to have that kind of debrief session and talk about your strategy a bit. So thank you for sticking with me here. I hope that was helpful. And we do have now 10 or 15 minutes for your questions. I'd be happy to take them. I think you can just type them into the chat box or the QA box, I guess either one, and then we will get to those. Also, I'll say that we have an evaluation, a poll that just popped up. We'd be appreciative if you took a minute to fill out that poll, because it gives us some good feedback on how well we did. And if you've got to leave, thank you for participating, and I hope you have a great day.
We definitely have some questions here in the Q&A. We have a question from early in the presentation about levels of the website. Someone said, do you have an example for level 2? Not sure. I think you gave an example or two at that point, but.
That's a great question. An example of a basic level website. Let me think about that for a minute, because I do work with a lot of clients, so I've certainly seen these, but a lot of that's confidential. So I'm not sure that I can show you one of the SBDC clients' websites. So I'd have to find one that's not a client website, but let me think about that a little bit and I can get back to you.
Okay. And then next we have, for Facebook and Amazon, are the ORs the minimum or maximum? Example, is Amazon $1 per item or $40 max, or a minimum of $40 and $1 per item if more than 40 sold?
Amazon, I'll take Amazon first. Amazon lets you pick. They say, do you want to spend $1 an item or do you want to spend $40 a month? So you basically pick and you decide what works the best. So if you think you're going to sell more than $41 items, you pick the monthly fee, because it's cheaper. So they give you that option. Yeah, typically, an example of Facebook, I think they charge you the flat 5% fee and plus a small 40 cent per item. So yeah, that's how the fees work.
Mm-hmm. If we are interested in selling downloadable items like templates, checklists, or guides, what is the best way to do this?
That's a great question. Places like Etsy and Facebook shops, they don't really focus on selling downloadable guides or templates. Sometimes it's most effective to sell those on your own website, yourbusiness.com, because you can customize that experience and the purchase of that item to be more personal to your audience. But Amazon is the e-commerce site that I talked about here that probably does the best with that. They have an Amazon publishing section, which allows people to publish ebooks. So if your guides or your templates are kind of in an ebook format, then you can self-publish them on Amazon, which will work really well. Amazon will also print it and physically mail it to somebody. So you can make that an option if you think that works for your business. So I would say first through your own website, and then secondarily through the Amazon publishing.
Good. Will you discuss which platforms allow state tax collections and which help to simplify the process?
All the platforms do tax collection. So there's a couple different ways to handle tax when you sell online. And I'll just say I'm not a tax professional, so you should consult with one. But all the e-commerce platforms know your location and the location of your buyer. So they calculate the tax that you need to pay. Some businesses prepay tax to the IRS like quarterly. Some pay it at the end of the year. There's different ways to pay that. But I'll just say that the e-commerce platforms all calculate it automatically. So like they'll give you a report and they'll tell you exactly how much tax you're gonna pay based on what you sold, but you can also prepay into the future if you decide to go that route. So do talk to a tax professional to see what makes the most sense for your business.
We've got a lot of questions. This is great. I'm about to sell photo prints online and will take care of printing and shipping myself. My website is set up through WordPress and uses the WooCommerce plugin. What service would you recommend for handling credit card payments such as Square?
WooCommerce. WooCommerce does that. So if you are, like you said, your WooCommerce is handling your checkout process. You're probably listing your items for sale with the WooCommerce interface. You've given them a name and a price. WooCommerce handles the credit card payment, so there's no need to use anything else.
Can you provide more examples of NFT?
There's a lot of examples, and like I said, I talk more about NFTs and blockchain in my Blockchain for Business bootcamp, so I can't get into it in so much depth right now. I do think it's a fascinating topic, but in a nutshell, NFTs are a digital record of ownership for a digital asset, right? So if, for example, if somebody made a digital painting or a digital piece of art, they could sell that and to somebody who would have an NFT, kind of like a diploma from college, right? It would like have a seal and it would say, you got this degree from this school, but an NFT is a digital thing that says you bought this thing at this date. So the idea is that people can resell their NFTs if they want to resell that digital asset or hold on to it. So do some more research. It's too much to talk about here in our limited time, but it's a fascinating topic. It depends what you would like to sell, what your digital thing is, but dig into it a little bit. And then if you'd like to talk to me more about NFTs in your business further, feel free to reach out to me with my email address and we can do that.
Are there any interfaces you could recommend for products sold locally only?
Yeah, so sometimes when people are selling locally, it's a service, but I assume you're selling a physical product, but you only want to sell that locally. So if that's the situation, then I think I understand you. Yeah, it's a bit tricky because almost all of these e-commerce platforms are set up to ship either nationally or even internationally. So if you just want to focus on a small area, probably you don't want to use any of these e-commerce platforms. What you would want to do is have your own website, right, that has your products for sale. And if you want to ship just to, say, your city, you say that on your website, you only ship to your city, or maybe people come to your location to buy the thing, that's fine. But then another important part of your online strategy will be your Google for Business presence. And what that means is when people go to Google Maps and they search for, let's just say you make pottery, they search for, handmade pottery near me as a term in Google Maps. If you have your business registered with Google for Business, then you will show up in the maps. And that can be a super powerful way to reach people who are local to you. So if you're not on Google Maps yet, you should be with that type of business. And just go to business.google.com and they'll walk you through how to get all that set up. It does take a few weeks. They do mail you stuff in the mail, you verify your address, etc. So it's not a quick process, but that is a useful thing for you to do, I think.
We've got a couple Shopify questions. The first one is, I've heard that Shopify allows you to add on your own programming to customize your shop. Would you recommend using their platform over a more sophisticated website, especially if you can do the programming yourself? And then another person said, can you comment on using Shopify for downloading software? So I feel those are kind of
okay. Yeah, well, the first one, so it's talking about customizing the Shopify website because you're a programmer, so you know how to program, or building your own website. I mean, they can be good in different situations. It depends on the extent you would want to customize the Shopify page and what you need to do on it to sell your product. So, I think something like that would take a little bit more understanding of what your product is and what you are trying to sell. Because, I could see it going either way being the best. So, if you want to reach out to me with a few more details, then I'd be happy to discuss that more with you. And the second question was on Shopify, but it was on, remind me on.
Using Shopify for downloading software.
Okay. I've never really heard of Shopify being used for downloading software. I'm assuming that your business is selling software that you've made, perhaps. I don't know. I mean, that's a great question, and I just don't have the answer. I have not ever heard of someone selling software on Shopify, so yeah, I don't know the answer to that one.
Which platform is recommended for payments of membership and monthly fees and/or donations?
It's a great question. So none of these e-commerce platforms are really meant for kind of reoccurring subscription payments or donations. Well, they don't do that. There are other donation platforms out there. They're not really considered e-commerce. I mean, it sounds like your business model might be a little unusual with the recurring subscriptions and the donations. I'm not sure how they all work, but take a look at Patreon if you haven't already. Patreon is a website where people can create recurring donations to anybody for any reason, really. So that might be an option for you. The other option would probably be to create your own website, yourbusiness.com, and really customize that payment model, really make it clear, because I know that Etsy or Amazon, They don't do that at all. Facebook shops, they don't do that. They just want to sell physical product and be done with it. So they don't have the interface for recurring and donations. So I think either Patreon or your own website will be the best thing for that.
Is there another session on having your own website? What are the pros, cons for having your own website instead of being hosted on another website?
Yes, I do teach a class called WordPress Basics. So WordPress is a website building platform. And in that presentation, I talk a lot about the considerations of building a website, the strategies, how to do it yourself. And I think we have one of those coming up in the next month or maybe 2 months, but check out virginiasbdc.org and for our calendar there, and it should be there. It's called WordPress Basics. So.
As a farmer, I sell produce by the pound. Is there a platform that best meets this pricing schedule?
So like produce by the pound. It's a bit tricky because selling fresh produce is not the focus of any of these e-commerce platforms. They're not set up for that. They're not set up for goods that will have a short lifespan. Especially your shipping might be really complicated. If you have to ship to the West Coast from the East Coast, you've got to package it in such a way it doesn't spoil. So I think you will not find a good fit with any of these e-commerce platforms. I would look into e-commerce platform for agricultural products specifically. Now, I don't know the names of any, but I do believe some exist. So they're smaller than these 5 I talked about today, but they'll be more set up to help you sell those fresh produce items. Yeah, I would probably look into those. And then if you don't already have a website for your farm, I would definitely have a website where people, maybe if they don't have a full e-commerce experience on your website, because that's kind of expensive to develop, at least they could have a list of your products and maybe call you or email you to place an order. So you do have some flexibility with getting sales through your website that way as well. So I'd look into those 2 options.
Great. I have a clothing consignment business. Do you recommend I post only top unique pieces? I'm starting with an online store and will move into a brick and mortar store.
That's a great question, because obviously each of your pieces is unique. And so you don't have inventory of 10 of one thing. It is a bit challenging because most of these e-commerce sites are really geared towards I have 10 of one thing. So eBay is a place to go when you want to sell one-off things. And I don't talk about it here because it is kind of a niche website to sell on. But in your case, I think it's the niche that you would need. People sell vintage items on eBay when there's just one of them, so that's really probably your best place. You could also have your website and have maybe some of your inventory there. It would take forever to probably have all of your inventory listed, but you could at least have some things that are the high value items on your own website. And if you didn't want to offer a full e-commerce, give us your credit card and buy it, you could have your contact information so people could reach out to you if they were interested in buying that. So yeah, I think eBay really makes the most sense. Facebook shops also might make sense because they also allow you to sell one-off things. So you can also look into that as an option.
If I use Facebook Shop, does that include the credit card processing service for free like Shopify has? Would I need to set up a bank account? Great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, Facebook Shops definitely handles all the credit card payments, just like all the rest. You do have to have a bank account. Now, many small businesses or sole proprietors will just use a personal bank account, and that works. There's no real disadvantage. I think when it comes to taxes, though, it can be more complicated. That's the main thing. So you do need a bank account. You can create a business bank account very, very easily, and with Chase or somebody like that, it's easy. It'll help you when you come to do your taxes. But as far as Facebook is concerned, they're happy to deposit the money in a personal bank account as well.
This is a Google question. I tried to set up a business email through Google. It was much more expensive than what you stated. It was about $125 a month, including their Google business services, and they didn't have any options. What suggestions do you have for purchasing a business email?
Yikes. Yeah, don't pay $120 a month. It's about $7 or $8 a month. And they do increase that every year, by $1 or something. But it's around $75 or $80 a year for the basic email package. So I don't know where you ended up to get that. You're obviously looking at something much more complicated than just the email. So it's called like the basic business email. And like I said, it's only $7 or $8 a month. So you generally will find that by going to you'll set up your business, your domain email with Google, and that requires a couple of steps. And then Google will say, okay, now let's create your first email address, and they'll show you that price. So what I would do to get started in the right place is just Google, get Google email for my domain name, and that'll take you to the right page. I forget what the link is off the top of my head, but that'll take you to the right page where they'll help you link the email to your domain name and then help you create that first email address. So try that. If you run into problems, feel free to reach out to me, and I can probably walk you through it over a screen share at some point.
Can you talk about terminal integration? For example, if I am primarily e-commerce but want a local pickup payment option, what would work best, Square or other options?
Yeah, so a local pickup payment, that's a great question. WooCommerce offers that. I know if you're using that plugin for your own website, they offer a shipping options, and one of those options can be a local pickup. I'm not sure if Square offers a local pickup option. I would be surprised if they didn't, but it's not something that I've ever run into before, actually. So I don't know the answer to that, but I think if you just Google Square local pickup option, or Stripe is another competitor, check out Stripe, see if Stripe has a local pickup option. I think that they probably would, but I can't really guarantee it because I just haven't come across that before.
What is best if you sell services, i.e. consulting services?
It's a great question. And I do talk to a lot of service-based businesses where a lot of these e-commerce platforms don't really apply. So for a service-based business, your main go-to places for online sales are going to be your own website, your ads. If you want to drive more traffic to your website, you can create an ad on Facebook or Google, and then having that Google for Business presence. So let's just say you have a consulting practice out of an office, in your city. You have a physical office. That's great because you can list that address in Google Maps, and then people can find you by searching for, say, a financial consultant in, I don't know, Richmond, Virginia, right? And then you can pop up there. It can be a great funnel for users. If your business is run out of your home, you probably don't want to list your home address. You could, Google won't say no, but some people don't want to, which makes sense. In which case you won't be able to use the Google Maps approach for getting new business. You'll have to focus solely on your website, your ads that drive people to that website.
We are a gourmet candy manufacturer. Can you recommend one e-commerce site over another? If so, why would you recommend them? Also, what is the benefit to using multiple e-commerce sites? Wouldn't it be a lot harder to keep up with inventory and sales?
To your last question, yes, it is much harder. Well, the advantage for using multiple sites is that each site provides a base of users and potential customers. So if you're on 5 sites, you're getting access to potentially 5 times the amount of sales. But not everybody has the capability to keep up with all those product postings and, yes, manage that inventory. So for selling food products like candies and kind of specialty candy, I think Amazon would be a really smart bet. A lot of food companies get a good start on Amazon. Like I mentioned earlier, you do have to be a little wary of counterfeiters. And if what you're making is something that could be counterfeited in a year or two, it could be an issue. But Amazon is probably still what I'd recommend to start with and to get your business off the ground. But then what you want to do is primarily transition to selling through your own website, your own .com, because you're going to have higher profit margins. You'll have much tighter control over the branding and the messaging there. So ultimately, it's better for your business.
Ooh, this is an interesting one. I'm creating a video game and want to sell my brand on items, t-shirts, etc., but I just don't have inventory capabilities. Which sites would be good for selling just-in-time delivery items?
Yeah, I think, if you're selling like t-shirts or apparel for this video game you're making, I think Amazon makes the most sense because you can, you can order 100 of these shirts, have them warehoused at Amazon, and then when people buy them, Amazon ships them out. So I think that's the best solution to what you're looking for. Otherwise, with the other e-commerce options, you really are stuck shipping them out of your house or your warehouse or your business location yourself, because they don't offer those shipping capabilities.
Are there any online shopping cart that I can pay and use on my website?
Yes. So integrating a shopping cart on your website is going to depend on where your website is built and what kind of technology it's using. I think one of the most popular platforms is WordPress. And like I've mentioned, WooCommerce is the most popular e-commerce plugin for WordPress. So I think if you're on WordPress, I can recommend WooCommerce without a doubt. If you're not running your website on WordPress, then the conversation gets more complicated. So we just have to know what you're running it on.
And this is the last question. Thank you so much, Cameron, for answering all of these great questions. They say, I pay a fortune to have my website hosted at GoDaddy. Can I switch it to another service? How would I do that?
Yes, absolutely. You own the domain name. You can move it wherever you want. So you would first want to determine where you want to move it to. If you're just looking for the most cheap website host out there, then I think there's one called Bluehost, probably bluehost.com, which I think is a very inexpensive host, like, I don't know, $5 or $6 a month. But regardless, you will pick your destination host. You will probably create an account there. And then there will be instructions on how to transfer your GoDaddy domain to the new host. Those instructions do vary depending on who you've selected as the new host. So I can't tell you exactly what to do from there, but it's usually pretty easy. Usually it just involves entering things like your GoDaddy, username and password to validate you own the domain. The transfer will usually take a day to fully move over. So you need to prepare for some downtime perhaps. But yes, you can always move your domain. You do own it, and it's your right to move it wherever you want, whenever you want.
That is all the questions that are popping up right now. So thank you so much again, Cameron, for taking the time to answer them all. You will all receive an email with a link to the recording and evaluation into the slides. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training and be sure to check out our next digital bootcamp, Grow Your Business with Digital Marketing, on February 3rd. You can also access on our website the COVID Business Recovery Center, which we developed to help owners not only continue business operations, but to thrive and recover. These resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. And you can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. Thank you all for attending, and we hope to see you at our next session.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.